What up, iCarlinators, and welcome to today's lore video. We'll be talking about the big poppa of all, Carly's dad, Colonel Steven Shay. His first mention is of course in the first episode, iPilot, from September the 8th, 2007. Stated that her father is in the US Air Force and is currently on a tour of duty in a United States submarine stationed somewhere in Europe at the show's beginning. Dan, show me your souls if you want the role, Schneider, creator of the show, cleared up a confusion about whether or not he was in the Navy or the Air Force. He's of course in the Air Force on a Navy submarine. Apparently. Steve's age is unknown, though we know Spencer is 26 at the show's beginning and 30 at the show's end. From this we can guess he's around 50 or so, and the actor who played him, David Chisholm, was 42 at the time of recording the fantastic finale, I Goodbye. I believe he's probably meant to be older in the show for all the maths to work out, though it's entirely unknown, and we can believe that he is probably around 40 or 50. There is no insight given on Steven's love life, or Carly's mother for that matter. Casts have been asked, but nobody has ever given any direct answer, or there is no insight known. Gibby though often thinks that Spencer is Carly's dad. We know Steve's father as Grandad Shay, who has made 2 appearances on the show, the first being in 2007 season 1 episode I Wanna Stay With Spencer, which has Carly saying goodbye to her friends, heavily foreshadowing the ending of the series I Goodbye. This episode has Carly's grandfather believing that Spencer is too immature and irresponsible to take care of Carly, after a botched sculpture showcase. Though by the end of the episode he does realise that Carly is in fact in good care with Spencer, as he gives her her asthma inhaler from when she was 7.
What's that?
My asthma inhaler? I haven't had an asthma attack since I was 7.
Well, yeah, but you never know.
Should probably be out of date now. He also gives his grandfather a list of things about Carly, such as her favourite foods, drinks, soups and chowders, there's a difference, and what kind of vitamins she takes every day. This outlines a problem within Carly and Spencer themselves, whereas Spencer knows for a fact that he is the carer of Carly. She feigns to realise this, always idolising a man who is intangible at her at most points in her life, be it her grandfather or her father, that she has to make an emulation of towards Spencer. So where has Steve been? Well, in I Won't Cancel the Show, during an episode of iCarly, it's revealed that Steven is currently in Anchorage, Alaska. We know before this he's somewhere in Europe, but this is the closest to North America we've had. Spencer jokes that Carly probably shouldn't give away their father's current position. Carly jokes that she meant Nebraska. This is entirely possible that this was a skit on the show, but it does imply that her father is doing some classified operations. In the last episode, I Goodbye, we know that he is finally stationed in Italy for what is referenced as at least a few years, as Carly would be staying with him for that period of time. Now, to break down some of Steve's most notable episode references throughout the series. There are numerous occasions on which a running gag is made of having him almost appear, like in the early 2012 classic I Meet the First Lady, more on this episode soon. The second instance of this was the May the 1st 2010 episode, I Won't Cancel the Show, in which Steven is able to watch an episode of iCarly live with his crew there with him from his submarine. This episode starts with Spencer preparing chicken for a sophisticated dinner date he's having with a woman that night. Colonel Steven Shay calls during the preparation of the chicken, and Spencer jokes that he has chickens on his hand. He says, live ones or dead. This states the lighter note of their relationship, as Spencer is able to have a joke with his father. This is more than we're used to. Spencer asks where he is. In awe, we don't hear the reply, but we hear him saying, "Ah, cool." Carly enters the apartment. Spencer promptly passes the phone to her and asks if they're doing the webcast tonight. She says of course we are, it's Wednesday. Carly and her dad finish the call together. Carly asks if he would like to speak to Spencer. He says he wouldn't.
Oh, you don't? Okay, bye.
This joke is used throughout the series, in which Spencer would like to speak to his father, but Steven is otherwise occupied, or rather wouldn't like to speak to Spencer in this time. This shows that he treats his son cold and distant, whereas he is embracing towards Carly.
My toes.
There are 2 instances of feet in this episode, and the phrase daddy's toes is seen. During the final webcast, we can see Spencer is filling in for Sam. He jokes in the end that he hopes he hasn't embarrassed his father as they are portraying it towards him. Carly says she loves her father. This shows a big dichotomy between Steven's relationship with his daughter and his son. Carly is seen to worship and idolise her father, longing for the days they could spend together. Spencer has much lower self-esteem and is obviously trying to have his father see him in a better appearance, as he would disapprove of his lifestyle as an artist. Whereas his father sees Carly's, albeit immensely popular, web show as a great creative outlet that shows Carly in her best light. He himself is a big fan, though he's never seen to take an interest or care in Spencer's current line of work, in sculpture and artistry. Now, back to I Meet the First Lady. This episode has Michelle Obama make a guest appearance and aired to 4.265 million people. The plot, however, has a lot of elements where we can understand Steven Shay a little better. This episode starts with Spencer in a suit. Quizzed by the gang, he states that it's because he's pretending he's graduated from law school and is already a good lawyer at a reputable law firm. This is an instance of Spencer hiding his lack of occupation to his father, the first of which, lying about him graduating and already being a practicing lawyer. This further implies Spencer is desperate for his father's approval. Carly made him an F-22 fighter jet. This further implies that Carly understands and idolises her father in his military career. Spencer accidentally explodes this with a self-lighting candle. This shows a side that Spencer is accidentally sabotaging the relationship between Carly and her father already. In a sudden turn of events later in the episodes, Steve cannot come for Carly's birthday due to there being a situation in the country he is in. It's not known where this is. This greatly upsets Carly all the way up until the start of the show, in which Sam and Freddie bring up the fact that Carly is sad due to her father not being there. This upsets Carly, however, this makes a lot more sense when we realise that Freddie has set up a call so that Carly could speak to her father in front of an audience along with her brother and closest friend Sam. Freddie utilises his gigabrain skills to hack into a military base to contact Colonel Shay. The video feed for Steve is not working and his picture is obscured, however we can see him in a Navy uniform through the blur. He can see the gang though, and Freddie puts his chat on screen over the video, which, if it started working for any reason, we would have been able to see Steve, but you're the tech expert, Fred. He's retaliating to Spencer in a very cold and distant manner, and when he accidentally explodes the cake again, he says, "Nice one, Spencer." Spencer does tell his father that he's still a lawyer in this scene, furthering the gag about him lying to his father for his approval. Probably also for his monetary assets. Steve replies to Carly saying that he loves his snugbug, a recurring nickname for his daughter. He then interacts with Sam asking how her mother is. This could have a lot of implications that I won't be diving into in today's episode. The gang delivers a very nice, heartfelt speech to Colonel Shay. Carly is now visibly happier than previous, and connection is lost. We can see from the jokes in this episode that Carly thinks very highly of her dad, and that they celebrate his military service often, using stars and stripes for his title card, and the use of patriotic symbolism. In the next scene we see Secret Service men attending at the school, rounding up Carly, Sam and Freddie. This is due to the illegal hacking of the military base. They're escorted back home, and we see Moore in the flat meddling with Spencer and his current operations. Right off the bat, this implies that Colonel Shay's work is very important, as the Secret Service is immediately involved in them communicating with him and hacking into the base. I mean, this is a justified measure, but you would imagine that they wouldn't rush children out of school just for such a thing. We're told that Michelle watched the episode with her daughters and wanted to congratulate them for their kind act of uniting father with daughter. Michelle is very thankful for Steve's military service, which we know is probably one of the largest milestones you can have, the First Lady congratulating them on serving the country. Beer Can Dan Schneider was on this episode, and there were no feet to my recollection. Michelle Obama was, in fact, on an episode of iCarly. She said it can be really rough for her kids to have a mum or dad away for a long time. Very heartfelt, very nice. This episode shows Steve's military prowess and his admiration for his career. Carly clearly looks up to him as an ideal father figure, though we can see in reality Spencer is the one who's at home bringing Carly up from the little girl that she was at the start of the series. Next, Bodmin legend Unconcentrated will discuss two episodes. March 5th, 2010, I Spaced Out, and December 31st, 2011's I Still Psycho, the follow-up to the classic I Psycho, which probably deserves its own lawn video soon.
Thank you, Tom, for dragging me into this. I'm not too sure why I agreed, but here I am. I am unconcentrated. I'm here to talk about 2 of the episodes of iCarly in regards to her dad. I've been given a script so I can talk about a subject I know absolutely nothing about. I guess this is what celebrities feel like. Anyway, let's get into it. I Spaced has a scene in which Spencer is drinking oyster tomato juice, a mixture between oyster broth and tomato juice. But he hates it, and following this, Stephen calls and Spencer then asks him where he is, and I've got to check the script again, in which he replies, "I'm 2k feet down in the Pacific Ocean, a new location as far as anyone knows." Mr. Shay speaks to Carly with distinct care about her going on a space trip, citing that she needed his permission. This again shows more bias towards his daughter. They say they love each other, and Spencer talks about drinking oyster tomato juice. And saying he doesn't care about it at all, he then leaves, presumably saying, "Daddy's busy," as Spencer echoes it back. Spencer then says, "Law school's going well," showing he clearly hasn't told him yet. Finally, we have I Still Psycho, in which Carly's father calls her after the kidnapping by Nora to tell her that it made the news. Spencer assures they are all safe. These 2 episodes show Stephen's colder side towards his son, and shows how Spencer feels he has to lie to make his father accept him, as in contrast to his deeply cared for snugbug, which is Carly. But there were one instance of feet in these episodes, and Gibby is stuck in a chimney. Thanks for inviting me to do this on your channel, and to join you for this. It's been a laugh. Ta-tom!
Thank you very much, Connor. Don't forget to subscribe to both of us fuckers. Now, we have the last instance of Steve and his first actual appearance. This episode is of course the emotional finale I Goodbye, in which we see the end of the show both in and out of universe. The plot of this hour special revolves around Carly wanting to go on a father-daughter dance at the McClellan Air Force Base, but being disappointed that her father cannot attend. This is a running theme throughout the series, where Carly looks up to something, looks back on something, where she cannot attain it because of her father's career being in the way, perhaps too important. She was informed via email, and she is very upset until Spencer then, in a selfless act of love for his sister, decided to cancel on his date with Candice to attend a dance with Carly in lieu of her father. This further shows that her father figure really is her big brother, which has been very apparent since the beginning of the show. It's stated that their dad is at McClellan, however this base has been non-operational since 2001 post 9/11, and that Carly and her father hadn't gone in 4 years, which is just before the show's start, conveniently in the timeline. There are toes in the next scene during a webcast, and Dan, hold her tight as she's a fighter Schneider, is a vaguely racist mechanic in this episode. This is due to the subplot of Spencer trying to fix a motorbike, the same one that Sam is then gifted at the end of the episode, where she rides off into the sunset to start Sam and Cat. We then see Carly's father, Colonel Shay, in all of his glory, in the flesh, burst into the apartment. We get a beautiful scene, and I will allow Dan Hyman Collider Schneider to describe this himself.
I knew I wanted Carly and Spencer's dad, Colonel Shay, to return for a special event. I knew that Carly would be missing her dad terribly, and that he would make a surprise return home. That's how I wanted the series to end. I had this vision of the front door opening, Carly hearing her dad's voice, turning, breaking into a huge smile, yelling "Dad!" and running into his arms. I saw that scene in my head back in 2008. So, it was kind of surreal when we filmed that very scene, in 2012. I love feet.
This is taken from his iGoodbye blogspot, in which he breaks down every scene one by one. Link in the description for the devout fan. We can see Spencer also run into his father's arms, giving him a big hug and screaming, "Daddy." We can see a new side of Steve in this scene, where he is warm and cracking jokes with Sam and Freddie, showing that he approves of Carly's friends, and more so that he enjoys spending time with her and their friends together. Next we see that Carly and Steve are going out somewhere in Seattle. Upon arriving back, there is a party at the apartment and merriment is had all around. However, all would not be smiles for long, as Steven Shay says that he is dipping back home tonight to his base in Italy. Carly is very upset. She feels like she is losing her grip on her father once more in her life. This time it is different though, as Steve asks Carly if she would like to come with him to Italy and live in Florence. She seems unsure, but does accept in the end. Next we see Mr. Shay make his second but very first real appearance on the webcast. There is a scene in which, as a final piece of closure, Spencer tells his father that he isn't a lawyer whilst doing his Baby Spencer skit. Steve is visibly angry and starts choking his son because of this. This shows a very, very clear distinction that Spencer's lying to his father, because in fact he probably has very high expectations of him that Spencer knows that with his artistry could never live up to. In the following scene we witness a very beautiful scene with Spencer and Carly solemnly chatting about her leaving in the room that he made for her after accidentally burning it down. It's essentially spelled out in front of her eyes that he is the one who instilled her with her morals, character, importantly her creativity, and that he is in fact the dad that she has been longing for. The grip that she has always had has been there because of Spencer. He calls her Kid once more, which is a fitting nickname to call her, as he has throughout the whole show, implying that she's his kid and he sees the childlike nature inside her. Contrast this with the name Snugbug that she gets from her father, which is a very real, deeply rooted sense of Carly's childhood, a very idealistic fantasy name for her having her military dad home with her. Whereas Kid is essentially blatantly, bluntly telling us how much of a deep and real care he has for his sister. We have a scene that shows Spencer and Colonel Steve casually chatting near the lift. This showcases them on a lighter note, the fact that they're still son and father ultimately. Carly is ready to go and gets in the lift. Colonel Shay says goodbye to the crew and jokes that Spencer would have been a great lawyer. He comes back saying he would have been the worst lawyer. They have a long embrace and Spencer jokes that his dad needs to keep sending money. Obviously this is the joke recurring all across the show that Steve has been financing Carly and Spencer's life. We see Steve on the plane caringly touch Carly's leg. We see Dan the child inside of Schneider's Twitter on Carly's laptop. There was one mild instance of feet during this episode. Well, there we are folks. That is every reference to Steven Shay throughout the series, the major ones at least. There are always, of course, minor references about the money and other small aspects of his life. I'm happy you've all stuck around to show you some iCarly lore. Stay around here for more. Stay tuned. You know we've got iCarly lore all the time on this channel. I think today I've looked at the deeper relationship that Colonel Steven Shay has with his children, putting both a strain on Carly's and Spencer's lives. Obviously Carly is affected a lot more emotionally by the fact that she is suffering from light abandonment issues. We can also see that Spencer, from what we can infer, he wishes his father cared more about him and had more of a understanding of his artistry. The concept of a true father is brought up. Is Spencer Carly's dad? The role in which he's taken in her life, in her formative years, has been one that we see that he cares about her. Though oft not seen, there's a lot we can deduce about Colonel Steven Shay. And I thank you for taking the plunge with me today. And we're clear. Big thanks to Unconcentrated, big up the Bodmin YouTube scene, gang, 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 gang. Don't forget to slap like. If I get 15 on this, I'm going to do a dramatic read of an iCarly fanfic. Fucking, you know what we do. Just pop through every so often. In 5, 4, 3, 2. I know, you see, somehow the world will change for me and be so wonderful. Live life, breathe air. I know somehow we're gonna get there and feel so wonderful. Some of those little girls were on this island before I got there. It's all for real. Alright, tell me just how you feel. Come let we galaxy members of our nation. It's your time to need. There's no chance unless you take one. And it's time to see the brighter side of every situation. Some things are meant to be. So give me your best and leave the rest to me. Leave it all to me. Leave it all to me. Just leave it all to me. Yar. Oh, fucking good that.